Hey everyone. So I apologize for this video taking so long to come out. This was actually supposed to come out back in June of 2019. I got super busy. I was working at the Vancouver Retro Gaming Convention in Vancouver, BC for the Vancouver Chip Music Society. Went to Los Angeles, a bunch of other stuff, mostly frustrations with a Vegas video and just putting this project to the side. So a lot of this stuff that I'm showing you with C700 might be out of date compared to the knowledge that I have with it now. But I asked people if they wanted me to put this out there. Most people said yes. I managed to cut it down to under an hour, but it's still pretty long. So grab some snacks, sit back, relax, and enjoy.
SFC.
Hello, what's up everyone? It's finally time for another SNES SFC style music episode. Finally, after how long? I realize these kinds of videos don't get a lot of views, but SNES music has always been a passion of mine and I want to share that with all of you. In this video, I want to talk about how to use the VST named C700, made by Japanese programmer Asoman. For those of you who use Twitter, he can be found under the username @Asoman. Anyways, C700 is a VST that you can use in your own favorite MIDI sequencing software. I'll talk about how you can output to an SPC file, which can then be played on an SNES music player and the SNES itself. To demonstrate, we're going to remake a Super Mario Maker 2 theme used in the snow levels of the Super Mario World style. You might want to get some snacks. This is going to be a very long one. So the first thing I want to talk about are the pros and cons of using C700. You can use any MIDI sequencers that support VSTIs, keeping your own workflow that you may be used to already. Whether you're used to Cubase, Cakewalk, or even ModPlug Tracker with VSTI support. As long as it supports VSTIs, C700 will generally work with it. It has an easy to adjust volume ADSR. One of the issues with the SPC 700 is when you're using the volume gain envelope and cutting notes, you can sometimes get chirping click sounds. This seemed to be a problem with a lot of old sound chips. Some certain Yamaha chips would do this at low pitches when you cut the notes off. And finally, you get that authentic SNES sound, using emulation to play back the sound, which means what you hear is what you get on hardware. Generally, anyway. The echo sounds a bit off, though generally works the same way as it does on real hardware. Unless you know exactly how it sounds, this is more of a nitpick than anything else. Sample looping's a pain. It literally follows the SNES limitations of setting a loop point every 16 bytes. This can be hard to loop sounds, if not downright impossible if you didn't sample it at the right sample rate. Fortunately, I'll show you a trick you can use with SNES mod. Even with an optimized MIDI setup, C700 does not quantize continuous controller commands. What does this mean? Well, your sequencer outputs MIDI commands at certain resolutions. Some sequencers will allow you to change the setting, but ultimately doesn't seem to affect C700 positively. It'll end up using too much SRAM, causing the SPC file to crash halfway through the song because it's logging a lot of garbage information it doesn't need. The only workaround is outputting to an SMC SNES ROM file, which you can then play on real hardware if that's your ultimate goal. SPC players cannot play SMC files. Now with that out of the way, let's finally get started. So the Super Nintendo only has 8 channels to work with, so what we'll want to do is get our sessions track layout ready by creating a single MIDI track. Then to make things easier, I'm going to duplicate it 7 times. That gives us 8 tracks to work with. Setting it up this way is going to make our channel layout easier to work with later on. Then I'm going to insert my instrument, which is going to be C700. Perfect. I'm using Cakewalk here. It's free. It's great to use. It's fully fledged. I really have been using it for a very long time, so I have no reason to switch, especially now that I don't have to pay for it. So now that we have our track set up, we really want to try to find the BPM of the song, the tempo. So we're going to start over from the beginning. And what I like to use is an online tap BPM. So I'm just going to tap to the beat. Beat, 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 beat. So we have about 131 beats per minute. So that's what I'm going to set right here, 131. Perfect. Now the next part is I guess the most tedious part of any kind of project is finding the samples and setting everything up. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try to find, I want to base this around Super Mario World's instrument set. So I'm going to use either Mario World or Mario All-Stars. So it sounded like there was a bunch of instruments that Super Mario World probably didn't have. There's also, if I remember correctly, there's a tubular bell right here. Perfect. Okay. So because Super Mario World and Super Mario All-Stars doesn't have that sample, that's probably one that I will end up making myself. So I'm going to use a sound canvas, the one by Roland. It's just taking its time. There it goes. So I think it's chromatic percussion. Perfect. So the whole goal here is I'm going to record the sound at a very, very, very quick loop. Kind of sounds like the same sample anyway. It's close enough for our usage. So the first thing I'm going to do is highlight my sample, record it, export audio. I guess it helps if I highlight the track first, export audio. And I'll just make a new subfolder in my SPC folder that I usually work with. I'll call this Super Mario Maker 2 SMW Snow. Call this Jingle. No, I already have a jingle sample. I'll be using that later, the same one that I used in the NES SMB3 snow theme that I made the other day. Call it tubular.wave. Perfect. Okay, now let's open up F Music Work SPC SM Mario Maker. There it is, tubular.wave. There's my sample. I'm gonna actually, before I change anything, I'm gonna make it louder. Maybe too loud, sorry for anybody's eardrums that just popped. And then I'm going to convert it to mono. I also want to convert it to 32K because that's actually the output for the Super Nintendo's sample rate. So there's really no need to go past that unless you're trying to upsample something. And of course, the more you upsample, the more memory you use. It's gonna do that. So I have my sample. I'm going to save it as tubular.wave. Now, there's two ways of getting it into C700. So I kind of want to get rid of this Roland VST. I don't need it anymore. At least not for now. I'll use it again if I need to. So I'm just going to go into the synth rack view and then click on it, remove it. Okay, so here's how you import into C700. You go to the load option, and then you go to wave, select wave in the drop down. There's my tubular file, and here's a sample. So if I play it, it's playing from C700 now. However, it's not looped, and here's the biggest challenge in any kind of Super Nintendo soundtrack, that is the fact that looping is a pain. As you can see, you can only go up and down 16 bytes at a time. Yeah, it doesn't loop very well at all. Sometimes you won't even get lucky with a a loop that syncs up that nicely. What I end up doing usually is I usually use a combination of impulse tracker as well as SNES mod, and then I import it myself. So I'm gonna go SM Mario Maker 2, SMW Snow, load, there's my sample. And we're gonna try to make this very small. So if you can hear that sample, it actually sounds like it's got some harmonics in it that won't loop properly. So what you need to do is make the loop larger. Alright, so I found one that doesn't sound as jarring. However, my sample rate is messed up. So because we saved it at 32 kilohertz, I'm just going to save it again at 3200, or 32,000 rather. There we go, we're tuned again. Okay, now that I don't need to loop anything, I'm just going to load that jingle sound effect that I made for that Nintendo SMB3 snow theme. I think I saved it as jingle.wave. Again, this was sampled from a Roland. Most of the Mario instrumentation was made from Roland sound banks. It's going to match the pitch now as well. Okay, now that we have our jingle sound effect loaded, we are going to start importing samples. What I'm going to do is try to find some music that the Super Mario Maker 2 song tries to mimic. I think Koji Kondo didn't actually have the original instrumentation anymore, so what he ended up doing was trying to find instrumentation that sounded very similar to it. It works, it's not really Super Nintendo. Like, when you listen to this song, there's a number of things like that bassoon, that sound that you hear. It's got too much release on it in the envelope. SNES can't do that. You've only got one voice per channel, and when you do a release like that, it's actually using multiple channels. As you can also hear the strings that it uses, Mario World never used strings. So we're going to have to use some substitutions. You can hear a glockenspiel there. Mario World doesn't really have a glockenspiel sample, but this is the closest we're gonna get. What I want to do right now is save these samples so that I don't have to go looking for them. What happens when you import SPCs into C700 is that it actually deletes or overwrites the old ones, and sometimes it can actually cause it that it's using too much memory. So when it uses too much memory, it actually ends up corrupting the samples you already have in there. Okay, so I'm going to save this one as jing.brr. And of course we're going to do the same thing for our tubular bell sample. Okay, now I'm going to import the samples from the song that I want by dragging the SPC file onto C700. Now that we have most of the instruments mostly organized, we will now need to try to match ADSR. So this is where things get a little bit harder. So basically ADSR is your attack, decay, sustain, release envelope. What that is it manipulates the volume over time for that sample. Now that we have our samples relatively set up, at least the ones I need for now, we can try to match the ADSR. ADSR is attack, decay, sustain, release. It's an envelope. Basically an envelope is just manipulating the volume over time. As you can see here, channel 3 is the bass. And it's got an ADSR set to E21. Go back. E216. So E is hexadecimal, which is 15. Two, 1, 6. And that should match. So I'll just play an example. I think it's just a little bit lower. That's right. Okay, so F is actually 15 because, as you can hear, a little bit of snap to the attack there, whereas the original doesn't have that snap. So to match it, we'll go to 14. Good. The first thing I'm going to do is let's start our song. I'm going to use channel 3 as my bass track. I'm going to set it up, choose my channel, tell it to use channel 3. I also have to tell Cakewalk to output at C700 on channel 3. I also want to set up this sample to also not use echo, but I do want to make it use mono. What that does is it doesn't allow me to be able to use multiple notes on the same channel. I also have to select my sample, so 0, 1, 0, 1, 2. Perfect. Now I can remake the song. Hey guys, so this is part of the music making process. Unfortunately, it can be a bit boring for anybody just watching from the outside in. Especially if somebody doesn't know how to play a MIDI keyboard like myself. I usually just input the notes in the piano roll. This part is recorded much later, like I recorded this whole video about a year ago. So if you have been watching my streams lately, it shows how the process can be from beginning to end. Most of my streams lately have been on compressing music, but you can get the gist of how it works. Plus I have some old streams on my YouTube channel that you can check out if you're like very much interested. I'll be fast forwarding again later on in this video a few times, but that's part of the course, I guess. Anyways, enjoy, and we're just about ready to show off the first bass line. Okay, here's our bass line so far. Okay, let's add the jingle bell now. It's important to find the correct pitch as well. That sounds about right. I'm gonna lower the volume on that. It's a little bit too jarring. And now the tubular bell. And because there's no ADSR from the game to use, I'm just gonna make my own. So to make your own, you basically just have to listen to the instrument, try to match it as close as you can. So as you can hear, it sustains, but it does fade out. So from here, I think I'm going to speed things up because this is going to become a very long process. I just want to get through it a lot faster than you watching me do a lot of redundant things like listen to the song multiple times like I am right now. So I've already inserted a lot of the notes for the strings and some of the other bass notes and such. I'm just about to finish up the bass line here. One of the techniques I use for when I'm remaking music is I like to change the pitch and stretch out the music. Another thing that Super Mario World does a lot is it uses echoes. So as you can hear here, you can hear the lead instrument there. If I solo channels 1 and 4, you'll hear it echo. The interesting part about this echo is that not only is it quieter, but the waveform is also inverted. It's causing a bit of a surround effect. If you're watching this on a mobile phone, you probably can't hear it because when it inverts the sound like that, it actually nullifies the sound when you listen in mono. So if I go to the SPC player and I disable surround sound, so disable surround and I play it again, you'll actually hear it. You can do this with C700 and automation with Cakewalk. It's just really tedious. So what I'm doing, because the sample is so small, I'm reloading it. So you can see here in slot number 3, I got the sample. And the volume is 100, 100. In slot number 4, it's the same sample, but I got negative 100, which actually causes... I'll pull up the piano roll. It actually causes that same surround effect. In Mario Maker 2 it uses a string, but Super Mario World I don't even know what to call that. It's more like, it's kind of like a really soft sawtooth sample. I'm gonna call this STR1 echo. Solo that and channel 1. I'm gonna turn this into channel 5. We're going to use, instead of number 4, which was the instrument that's replacing the strings, I'm going to choose instrument, or yeah, program number 5. Okay, I was mistaken. So it's actually 03, program 003 is the lead instrument, 004 is the lead instrument, but with surround effects turned on. So now that I have that, if I take, drop down that, if I take this part that I had already sequenced off camera, let's undo that. I hold control and then drag it down. It actually copies all the parts. But if I want to cause that echo effect, what I'm going to do is drag it a little bit, but I also should snap it. So let's snap it to 32. And then when I look, again, it was a little bit lower in volume, so I'm gonna cut the volume a bit. And let's hear how it sounds. That is absolutely not the sound I was going for, although it sounded cool. That was my general MIDI sound font that I had, so I'm gonna choose C700 and try that again. Okay, so for track 6, I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm just gonna delete this track. And then duplicate this one. Makes it a little bit easier. Call this STR2 echo. And let's change it from channel 5 to channel 6. And I will copy everything from STR2. Do that, and then do the same thing. So the only thing I don't really like about it is the fact that it sounds a little bit too echoey. So I think maybe it is 64. Let's try it again. No, it's not a... Okay, so I'm going off... I think it could also be a triplet, so let's try triplets too. On this, snap it to 64. Just try it like that. Try that without the jingle. Sounds a little bit more right. So I'm going to keep trying on this, trying to get something closer to what Super Mario World actually had. That's basically Super Nintendo music in a nutshell. You got to keep working on it until you get something that you're satisfied with. Okay, so I had a really neat idea. I didn't know that, I forgot that Cakewalk had this feature, so I'm going to copy this block, go to STR1 Echo, go to Edit, Paste Special, and then I want to link to the original clip. What that means is any changes I make in this box, this clip, will affect this clip. So I'll give you an example. If I go in here and I shorten this, keep an eye on track number 5 here. If I shorten this, you will see that it shortened it in the other clip. So what I'm going to do is I am actually quantized to a 30-second triplet. So I think that was my issue. The note was not just quite long enough. So let's do that. And if I go over here, I'm going to do the same thing for STR2. I'm going to copy it, go to my STR2 track, paste to special, link to the original, boom. Let's go to STR2. Modify it, and just watching up there, I'm going to lengthen the note. I'm going to keep working on this. I'm going to actually make the lead instrument the bassoon. Over here, I don't think I have it imported yet, so I'm going to go ahead and I'll do that. So for the next few samples, I'm going to do some tricks because I cannot find any relevant Super Nintendo or Super Mario World samples pertaining to these instruments. Even Mario All-Stars, Mario All-Stars has a new trumpet, which will work fine for this part, but this is kind of like a bassoon, and it doesn't really work very well with the Mario World instruments. So what I'll do is I'm gonna make a new sample. So first thing I'm gonna do is, you can hear the sound. The sound is dead center, it's panned right to the center. You got the strings a little bit to the left. We got the jingle bells kind of just off left a little bit. And the Yoshi drum a little bit to the right. So for this, I'm going to do some tricks. Let's do a stereo expansion all the way. And what that does is it expands the stereo range. You can hear the strings a little bit further to the left, the jingle bells a little bit to the left. Yoshi's drum is a little bit more to the right. I'm gonna do it again. So now everything that's dead center is more center and everything else is pushed further to the sides. With that, what I'll do is a center channel extraction effect. And what that does is it gets rid of the strings, it gets rid of the jingle bells, it gets rid of a little bit of the Yoshi drum, but really what I want is the tone of the sound. Cool. So that's what I wanted. I wanted that waveform sound. And then I can edit the sample to be almost exactly the way Super Mario World does it. So if you look at the Super Mario World samples, you can see that they're just a very short tone. Like, a lot of them are just basically sine waves and like sawtooths. Like, those are my samples, but you can see there's like a little bit of a, this is kind of like a sine wave with a bunch of other tones added to it. That's kind of like a half triangle, half sawtooth. Yeah, that's going to be my goal. I'm going to try to get a sample like that. I don't know if I'll be able to get dead space and before the sample like that, but the goal will be to try to replicate that kind of a sound. You can see the loop point starts right at 64. So that's one of the limitations of the Super Nintendo BRR sample format. That's 16 milliseconds, 16 bytes. You can only loop at every 16 bytes. So I'm going to use the SNES mod trick that I showed you earlier. I'll go ahead and I'll do that. I'll import the sample into C700 and be right back. Okay, so I don't want to mess up the layout of my C700, so what I'm going to do is insert another instance of it. Perfect, and then I'm going to drag that SPC file I just made. See if I can find the sample. There it is. So there's my made sample. Let's hear how it sounds. Cool. Okay, I'm gonna shut off the echo of that, turn it to mono. Mario World ADSRs always start at 14. Now let's bring that down to 2 and then maybe this down to 3. And I noticed in this song it's got a big release. There. Cool. Okay. So that's good. 17 is better. And let's make the lead instrument now. Actually, first of all, I should save the sample. That way I can import it. Snow tone, I called it. Perfect. Perfect. Okay, let's go ahead and I will start sequencing the lead. So I'm just making a little bit of adjustments. The beginning, I think, is, even though it's accurate, most of the Super Mario World themes actually start up in a higher pitch. What I think I'm going to do is emulate that. So I'll take my STR1, STR2, keep the bass and the tubular bell the same. STR1 echo also needs to be selected, and STR2 echo needs to be selected. I'm going to pull up the piano roll and then drag everything up an octave. Got to select everything again. That's better. Let's save that. Oh, okay, so I forgot the echoes are linked to these clips, so any changes I make here will change in here, but I also have them too long, so I should be able to cut them off right here. There we go. I also adjusted the attack for this one. It was coming in too abruptly. Okay, so we got the repeat of the intro, not really the intro, but the main lead. In the original song, it used a glockenspiel. We don't actually have a glockenspiel in Mario. Or it's like a Celeste or something like that. But Mario World rather does have something we can use, so let's see if we can figure out where the sample is. But now that we have our little glockenspiel like instrument from Super Mario World imported, let's hear how it sounds when it's on its own channel. So it's very quiet, as well as the wrong pitch. So here's the weird thing about this sample. In Super Mario World, if you listen to the intro, and with all the other instruments playing, the main bass of the frequency is drowned out, and you can hear nothing but the harmonic. I wonder if I should be doing the same thing. Those instruments are loud though, so that might not happen on this one, on my version. Try it a little bit less velocity. Let's just try that for a while and hear how it sounds. So I'm gonna go ahead and import the trumpet now. Ooh. They're using echo. In Mario World, you didn't really use echo unless you were in a cave or something like that. So we got the trumpet imported. This is one of the few samples in Mario All-Stars actually that does have its ADSR, the attack starting at full range, probably so it can get the beginning of the trumpet sound. It also has, as you can see here, it also has the sustain and the release and the decay at default settings. So it's going to basically just sound like an on-off sample. So if I play this. Okay, so I haven't actually changed the instrument yet, so what I'll do here is go... I like to do it before, because if I do it right on the beat, it actually causes some weirdness to happen when a note and a program change happen at the exact same time. Usually the note is played first before the program change, so you can hear, you know, some weird anomalies with that. I believe I'm sample number 7. Yes, sample 7. Okay, so we'll hit OK. And now when I play this, and I'm not tuned. There you go. We're back in tune. I sequenced the trumpet / trombone part a little bit here. It worked out okay. I threw some modulation in there too. You got to be very sparing with it, otherwise you eat up all the memory that C700 has, and then it just crashes the SPC when we output it to SPC ultimately in the end. That's the wrong note. Perfect. Now this is going to be a fun part here. Uses the tubular bell and a church organ, which Mario World did not have either. Okay, so you know how I was using the roll-in tubular bell before? Well, guess what? That little trick that I was using before for extracting that sound, you can use it to extract the tubular bell from the song. So that is what I'm going to do. Keep it 32K. Delete this. Don't need it to sound super pretty because it's going to be sampled and the ADSR is going to do the work. But let's convert that to mono. Make it a little louder. Very loud. I'm very sorry for your eardrums. So we can't use this one because the other note is bleeding into it. We could probably use this one here. Cool, okay. So that is what I'll do. I'm gonna edit this sample. I'll come back to you after I have it finished and imported, and we'll check it out in C700. So I wasn't very sure about what I was gonna do about this part here. The organs aren't used in Super Mario World or Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island. So what I ended up doing was, according to Wikipedia, the only other game that came out during the Super Mario World era was Pilot Wings. So I listened to Pilot Wings and I heard that there was a song that has an organ in it. And if you listen to the Pilot Wings soundtrack, it sounds very close to Super Mario World. Just in terms of how the samples are set up and the way the music sounds and everything like that. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to borrow Pilot Wings organ sample, which I already imported here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll input those notes and we'll see how it sounds after I'm done. So there we have it, the song is done. Let's take a listen and we'll see how it turned out. Can't help but think that something's missing. Of course we're missing the Yoshi drum, so let's go ahead, we'll add that, and then we'll come right back, listen to the whole thing again. So in making the Yoshi drum, we're going to follow the center channel. They're pretty loud and prominent, you can still hear them, but there's a center channel extractor from Adobe Audition that we can use. We extract the center, take the sides out, and then we should be able to hear just the drum. And it sounds like the rhythm is pretty easy to get, so let's go ahead and we'll copy this. Okay, so we're gonna match the echo settings here. Mario World doesn't use echo settings unless you're in a cave, usually anyways. Super Mario All-Stars did, but we want to be very careful about what we set here because we don't want to go over our memory limitations, although I don't think we're going to. Uses a setting of 32 milliseconds. The volume is maximum. The feedback is 60%. All right, let's do it. So we'll set the volume to maximum, which is 127. Echo level is 0 because it's not being used, so we'll keep ours at 0. I'm going to change the delay to 32 milliseconds, and then the feedback to about 60%. Now the problem with this is it might make the music too loud. It is a little bit too loud, so we're going to lower everything. So in Cakewalk, if you select your tracks and you hold Control, then everything that's selected should go down in volume, which it does. Sounds about right. We'll just save those settings for now. Now we're going to go into our recorder and set the game title. We'll call this Super Mario Maker 2. The song title, we'll call it Super Mario World Style Snow Theme. Name of dumper, we'll just put my name. You can put whatever name you want here for quote-unquote whoever dumped the song. Basically, if you're an artist and you're wanting to show that you made the SPC, then this is where you could put your name. You could also put your name here if you composed the song. In my case, I didn't compose it. Nobuo Mathew didn't compose it. It was Koji Kondo. We'll just say made with C700. This is where it gets a little confusing. So we have to set our starting point. Now, something else I didn't mention is that you also need to get the bin file for the player code off of the website for C700. And I'll show you really quickly where to get that. So this is the website where you get it. Sometimes Google Chrome might automatically translate it from Japanese to English or whatever language you have set in your browser. Right now I have it set to automatically translate to English. So here's where you got the VST in case you forget, but you can also get the player code.bin file. You'll need to save this to a folder in your hard drive, and then you'll need to drop it into this window. Already shows that it was installed, but you'll need to drop it into this folder, or this window rather, so that you can export to SPC. Since I've already done that, these settings are already here. Now I'm going to show you how to export to SPC. Basically what you want to do is set on your timeline exactly where you want it. So right now the beginning of the song is going to be here, measure 1, beat 1, 0, 0, 0. So we'll set the recording start position to here. Obviously it's going to be 0 over here. This is where the loop point is supposed to start, so that's bar number 2. Although because I don't snap right to the measure, I'm going to be off a bit, so let's snap it right there. Perfect. So we'll snap it right to 2. We'll set this as our loop position. And then we want the record end position to be right at the end of the song. So we're going to put it right at bar number 28, or measure 28. And set that. Perfect. Okay, so now when this saves, it's going to save. Right now I have it in my F drive, MusicWork SPC C700. So that's where it's going to save both the SPC file, which I have checked, and an SMC file, which I also have checked. Now here's where it gets a little complicated. if your sequence has a lot of volume changes or continuous controllers that you use, or a lot of other things that might take up all the RAM, the SRAM in SPC 700's memory, then C700 may crash in the SPC. If that happens, basically you'll hear the song playing, and then out of nowhere it'll just stop playing and you'll have a note playing continuously. What you can do, if your goal is just to have something play out of hardware, you can output it to an SMC file, and what that does is it actually outputs to a streaming sequence in an SNES ROM file. It's hard to explain exactly what that does. Basically, instead of putting the entire music file into the RAM so that it plays back, what it actually ends up doing is it only puts a portion of the sequence file into RAM, and then it streams continuously so that it doesn't eat up all the RAM, so that the music will continue to play and the music doesn't crash. In an SMC file, this is fine, especially if you're not planning on releasing SPC files of the songs that you make. Okay, so to log it now, basically we click OK and we just listen to the whole song. The song is done. Let's go see if the SPC file exported. It did export. The file name is a little bit too long, so it called it Snow The. That's okay because I have to re-record it, change the names, because I want to have two different versions, one with a Yoshi drum, one without. Let's drag this file over and we will try to play the file. I tried dragging it over, it's not loading, so we'll do it the hard way. There it goes. Okay, let's play it and try it out. Okay, let's try it out. And just in case you're interested in the song itself, I'll put a link to the SPC file in the description below, as well as a YouTube video that went out last year. Alright, I'm going to end it here. Hopefully this was informative for you. C700 seems daunting. It's really not that hard once you get used to it. But there are a little bit of nuances you need to work around. Mostly it's just working within a limited environment. It's basically way better than what they had to do back in the day when they had to do everything through text files, MML. Some people used MIDI, etc. So anyways, hopefully you enjoyed this. Hopefully it won't be as long when I make my next video. I think the next one I want to make will probably deal with SNES mod and show you how everything works there. But anyways, if you have any questions, go ahead and leave me a comment. If you like this content, like, subscribe, whatever you want to do. I was thinking about putting up a Patreon, but I'm not sure how appropriate that would be. Let me know in the comments what all of you think. Once again, thanks for dropping by. See you guys.